Uh, Hi, everyone. My name is Deepak. So I lead data and AI for the UK public sector at AWS. My role is to basically bring in our latest thinking, thought leadership, innovation. AWS is bringing in this space and help our customers, transport customers, to adopt some of the latest innovation happening in this area, and actually approach the whole AI, Gen AI wave, which has disrupted the whole industry in a very practical, pragmatic, and realistic manner so that we actually deliver value from the investments we are making in this space. Joining me today, we've got three panelists. But before we go into the panel discussion, I've got a short presentation to share, more to share about our thinking and our perspective around how the industry is adopting the modern data, AI, analytics platforms, and the value they are already driving from this. So, we've been hearing stories around how data and AI is becoming foundation for transport organizations, transport industry as a whole. A lot of talk about generative AI, a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, changing the way we are going to serve passengers and customers of the future, changing the way the employees within these organizations are going to work in the future. But something I wanted to draw everyone's attention on is that AI is not something new for the transport industry as a whole, right? So transport industry, the organizations in this space, they've been using some form of AI already for many years, starting with Manchester Airport Group. So MAG, we're working with them for many years, and a couple of years ago, we engaged with them in shaping their digital transformational journey and their strategy for the future. Something which was very important for them was how do we actually improve the passenger experience on the airport? How do we improve the working conditions for the employees working on Manchester Airport Group? And the third driver for them was to look at how do we increase revenues from the footfall we're going to attract on the airport. So it is not just about improving passenger experiences, it's not just about improving experiences, but also innovating and finding new ways or new revenue sources for the airport. Transport for West Midlands, we've heard their story earlier around how they've built a data team internally. They've been looking at air pollution checks, a lot of data to actually measure the impact of congestion or the environmental impact of congestions, and bringing data, machine learning to work to help and improve the citizen experiences within that area. Transport for London had brought open data at the center and heart of the way they've been serving the passengers and the customers. So this is where we talk about private-public collaboration, data collaboration becoming a big challenge. But with TfL and Transport for London, what we've seen is they've actually made that work. They've brought the private-public collaboration to work through data. And with the open data that comes out of TfL is already creating a lot of massive impact on the economy itself. Then there are some other examples as well, with Deutsche Bahn from an railways perspective, Expedia, creating better hotel booking experiences. And then we've got Air Canada, who's revamped their customer loyalty program using the power of the cloud and data, AI, analytics as such. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because there's been a notion in the industry that AI is something new and it's going to change the world going forward. But the reality is, within the transport sector, we are already embracing and getting benefits from these modern data and AI platforms for many years. But what has changed recently is, with the generative AI capability coming into picture, we are seeing massive advancements and acceleration in the adoption of AI across the board. So what that means is, if you look at Ryanair, for example, so Ryanair are looking at improving their experiences using generative AI and their employee experiences using generative AI capabilities. So what they are looking at doing is, how do we make our crew and staff more efficient? How do we give them real-time personalized assistance through generative AI-enabled chatbots so that they are more effective and efficient in the way they are serving their customers. United Airlines is an interesting example, right? So we are talking and focusing a lot about passenger experiences and improving the operations. But United Airlines had a unique challenge. They had a 50-year-old passenger airlines passenger system, which is like a mainframe-based application, which is really hard and difficult to work with. They have some unique codes being written from last many, many years, and it's really difficult to decode those codes as they are on their modernization journey. So what they're doing and what they're looking at generative AI is use the power of AI to unpack those complicated codes so that they can be translated into plain English so that you don't need a kind of an airline specialist who've been working on that system for many, many years to be able to understand that code. But with the power of generative AI, they are just simplifying that whole process of understanding it and modernizing the whole application. I was with a customer a couple of months ago where we were looking at and doing a working backwards session around how do we innovate with AI and what are the opportunities we have for them. And one of the big use case which came out in that discussion was about we've got legacy application built over the last 15 years. We do not have a lot of documentation around how the coding was done, what a particular application does, and what data it holds. We had experts who have moved on to the new role and the new job. So we lack that subject matter expertise as well in the mix. And guess what? Even though the whole discussion started with, hey, let's bring the customer at the center of the strategy, let's improve operations. The first use case that particular organization is now adopting is using AI to decode and unpack their technology landscape so that they can modernize and migrate to cloud faster. TUI, for example, is another example where they are looking at, and Booking.com as well, they're looking at generative AI to create product descriptions, hotel descriptions. In fact, they have ambitious plans to basically bring in the power of generative AI to their customers so that we are talking about personalization. Sometimes we help our customers in transport sector by personalizing and giving them options around what they are doing, what they may like, what they might like. But this is where we are using generative AI to take a step ahead in the game, where we give them real-time personalized experience around what the options they currently have, how with the weather condition, the road conditions, social, economic, environmental conditions, if they want to change their choices or choose better choices, using the power of technology, we are helping improve those experiences in those scenarios as well. So what's changed with generative AI is we have better technology. We have a technology which is not just working at the back of the data it is learning from, but it also is creating those unique experiences and predicting the future faster, better to overall benefit of the industry. So that's kind of where generative AI is and has kind of changed and truly transforming the industry. The panel today, we want to discuss more about what is the art of the possible and where the future is going. I've just listed down 6 key areas where we see the maximum traction from an AI perspective impacting transport. Number 1 is around digital engagement and smart tickets. We are basically seeing a trend where our customers are coming in and talking about how do we actually bring data and AI at the forefront of the digital transformation they're going through. Up until now, these organizations have been going through a digital transformation where data was an afterthought. Data was an operational thing. OK, we've got this journey. Let's capture the data. Let's find out areas we can kind of operationalize and analyze and understand and give that insight back. But now our leaders we are working with, they are thinking about data and AI first. what are the operations, what are the steps in our passenger's journey we can enable using AI is one of the first questions they're asking. And how do we bring better data and insight throughout their journey to exceed their customer expectations? So I think that is number one. Overall traveler experiences and creating those interconnected experiences is the second area we are looking at. Optimizing maintenance. Now, this is something that's been working for many years in some of the other industries as well, where we are sticking IoT devices and reading the data from the IoT devices and identifying needs for maintenance of the equipments and railway tracks and some of those examples. And we are bringing data to predict maintenance requirements to make sure that before something breaks, we've got support proactively available. And generative AI is accelerating the pace in which we are doing innovation in that space. Mobility as a service, again, is an important area. We heard this afternoon about sustainability in the cloud, on the cloud, and for the cloud. I think the key area here is how do we actually use the power of generative AI to, I think from sustainability perspective, and the question that's coming to us is all about transparency as well. So the first step in the move towards sustainability is making transparent the carbon emission or the carbon footprint associated with each journey, associated with what the passenger or a customer is working through. And this is one of the areas we are innovating in. And being data-driven and data democratization is a key topic. So we heard about Transport for London as an organization. We've made massive impact. We know in the UK there is a transport data marketplace coming up as well. In fact, across UK there is a national data library initiative coming up as well. So there is a massive, massive opportunity around bringing data to life. And AI is playing a big role in this because at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of data silos across industry, across departments in this space. With AI, what we are looking at doing is simplifying the access to the various disparate data sources which exist within the ecosystem and use natural languages to understand and extract those data is an area of innovation that we see. Now, I mean, I've very quickly covered some of those areas and things, but I think this is where I just wanted to very briefly touch on how do we approach innovation, right? So I think that is where there is a lot of talk and discussion around bringing modern data technologies, AI technologies, generative AI applications, large language models, and all of that. But one of the trends and things we are seeing from our experiences of being in the market for the last 20 months or so is the first thing the organizations need to look at is the mindset by which they are adopting these new advanced technologies. Do they have the right culture? Do they have the right approach? When the technology comes in, there's a lot of talk about technology, but let's about what is it it's going to change, and how do I as an individual within the organization need to change to adopt and embrace the power of the innovation I'm going into. So a lot of discussions happening, and we've got kind of proven methods. I know Jenny spoke about that earlier as well, and we're going to pick that in the panel discussion as well. How we move from platform-centric conversations to product-centric conversations, and we move from solution first to more of a customer-obsessed and a customer-focused conversation. So I think that is another area we'll explore. People and processes, the skills are changing, the roles are changing. So there's a lot of support we bring in around how those kind of roles are going to evolve in the future and what skills the staff need. And one of the questions that keeps coming back to me individually as well is, are we all going to become data scientists? Are we all going to become large language model experts to be able to survive in the future? The reality is, there are different personas and different roles and different skill sets required for people within that value chain. And it is important that we educate our organizations and ecosystem in that space as well. And then, of course, last but not the least, technology comes in. It's a tech-driven innovation. It's a tech-driven transformation. Technology is going to help. But if we do not have the right mindset, culture, the people, and the process, there is not much we will be able to achieve from just by the technological advancements we see in the industry. So with that, I'm going to get back to our panelists. I'll actually let them introduce themselves. So I'll probably start with you, Jenny.
Yes, absolutely. Some of you saw my previous presentation, but to reintroduce myself, I'm Jen Stanley. I'm in the AWS Public Sector Transport team, and I, prior to working in AWS, sat in the Amazon logistics side of the business, working across mode in policy, mostly on sustainability.
Okay.
Robin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin North. I'm co-founder, chief exec of a UK tech company called Immense. We were founded nearly 10 years ago, 2016, and we build simulation capabilities to help people test changes, alternatives for the transport system, transport network.
Thank you. Giulia?
And I'm Giulia Lorenzini. That's not quite my job title, but I'm heading up the innovation funding for Connected Places Catapult.
All right, that's
kind of that.
Yes, that's fine. Right, no, that's great. No, thank you. So look, I think what I wanted to focus on from a panel perspective is explore more about the future and where we are going, right? So I think I would potentially like to start with you, Robin. I briefly spoke about TfL, and I know you've been working a lot with TfL, with the digital twin and kind of simulating the roadblocks and the impacts there. Why don't you kind of introduce our audience to what your role is and, some of the latest advancements and how you're using AI in the way you're serving your customers?
Okay, yeah, so thank you. So I said we build simulation tools. To give people a picture of that, it's a little bit like a real-world Sim City, but with rubbish graphics. Okay, so what we use those tools for is to help people compare, do something versus do nothing. Lots of different applications of that. It's a platform that's very powerful, does wonderful things. About 5 years ago or so, we were involved in an innovation program with TfL, with Transport for London, because there was a persistent challenge around managing roadworks and managing the impacts of roadworks, and in particular, the very large number of permit requests and the difficulty of understanding the impacts of we can do this on the A10 this morning or not, and how that propagates, who's affected, which journeys, which bus routes, all of those things. So we have technologies based on agent-based modeling. They're very useful in this. And so we worked with TfL to use some of their data and some of our processes to build out models of the city and enable non-modelers, non-specialist teams to be able to ask questions and test their changes and get a standardized output that they could interpret and use as part of their business process. So we've built some internal capability for TfL around that. It's been a very successful trial program looking at scaling that out. Some of the things we've learned in the process, that where AI tools and where a lot of advanced methods are really important, is around how you build trust in what's a very complicated data-rich system, so that people understand what it's doing as a typical day in the life of the city, and how you can then look at differences within that and trust the changes and be able to interpret them well. Because the end users, the customer for that technology, for that approach, they're not the expert transport modelers. They're not the data scientists. They're not the teams that are going to have spent decades of building expertise around this. They're people that are dealing with hundreds of permit requests across their desk, and they need to work out which other colleagues they need to engage in providing a timely solution and solving the city's problem of how do we allow this gas main to be repaired while also ensuring, as best possible, the buses can run on time, people get updated information, all of these things happen. So within that, it was a fascinating process of trying to understand what the real problem was we were trying to solve, and where some of these technologies are fantastically helpful in making our types of system usable by non-specialists, making them available.
Yeah, Robin, I think you picked up an interesting topic around, you're dealing with non-specialists, right? People who do not understand maybe the models. So they're specialists in the work they're supposed to do.
Yeah, they're absolutely
but they're not
specialists, but they're not specialists in what we do.
Yeah, so tell me more about how do you communicate with them? How do you make them or simplify the art of the possible from tech for them to be able to make them more efficient in what they're doing?
Yeah, so a lot of that process was a collaborative development process of understanding what they needed and how to create the interfaces that worked for their use cases. And that turned into something I think we're all still distilling, which is like, how do I ask a simple question and get an accurate, useful answer to it in a quick way? Because, I mean, the questions are really straightforward. It's like, what happens if I close this bit of bus lane for 2 hours on a Wednesday morning? And then the answer is, well, lots of things happen, but the ones you need to care about are this one, this one, and this one. And so a lot of that involved us trying to work quite closely with those teams, trying to understand what they needed to do. And what that's led us to do now is be able to create tools and interfaces that are much closer to the working practices of those teams. It's not, I need to go and commission a specialist model to be done. It's, I can click on a map and say, this is the bit I want to do this to. Go, give me an answer.
Nice. Jennifer,
Yes.
I want to bring you into the discussion. With Amazon, I intentionally didn't put any of that Amazon story in my slides because I know, you've worked very closely with that. What would you like to, share with the audience in terms of how Amazon is embracing AI, or had been? I know we've been using machine learning AI for many years.
Yeah.
And the impact it's making to our customers, and something which transport industry as a whole could pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really key message. All of us recognize that AI is a transformational technology. I think we were discussing it earlier and we were like, we don't need to create hype. The hype's already here. But actually what we want to do is have a conversation and say, we've been doing this for a long time. There's lots of examples of how we are doing this and how can we help others do this too. So from an Amazon perspective, really our goal is, this is fantastic. Let's think about what customers' needs are and work backwards from that and see, are there applications of data, AI, machine learning, generative AI that can improve their experience. And we're really focused on building those capabilities into all of our business units, across Amazon. I'll give some examples. Apologies if you did hear some of them earlier, but they're great. So our warehouse operations, even in its most fundamental way, is kind of based on data-driven decision-making and predicting what are the most popular goods that our customers like, ensuring that our network is set up to locate them close to customers, and then equally within our warehouses, how we manage inventory. The robotics that we have that help move and shunt heavy parcels or heavy pallets of goods around a warehouse. They, complement the work of our associates and allow us to operate much more quickly, much more efficiently. So to give you a sense of scale, we have over 750,000 robots operating in our warehouses globally. And as I mentioned, they help with moving things or ergonomics, locating parcels, or where do we stock them within the warehouse so they're easy to find. And we've seen a 75% faster operation, which allows us to be 25% more efficient. So some really positive results there, and that helps the associates operate. It saves time, it's safer. And then delivery optimization. So once our package is on the road, how do we make sure that that route is as optimal as possible so we can deliver it quickly, but also so it's more sustainable, which is what I was talking about earlier. Looking at how can we use IoT sensors on our vans, feed that data back into a live mapping system for our last mile. That's really useful technology for us to keep up with the demands of a modern day customer. I mentioned sustainability already, but we also use it to make sure that our packaging, which I know everyone here will have received an Amazon package that is too big for the product inside it, is something that we are continually working on, and AI image scanning, helps us with that in identifying the right size package, reducing waste, and safety as well. I mentioned one example earlier, but there's other technology that we use in our vehicles with AI cameras, essentially, that give audio and visual cues to drivers to help inform their driving behaviour, ensure it's more safer, and we've seen 1/3 less collisions. So some really positive use cases there.
So Jennifer, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll ask her like a similar question to what I asked Robin about.
Yes.
How does he interface with people who are like less techie and don't understand those things, right? So in Amazon, how does the machine and the human interface works, right? So you mentioned about 750, 100 or 1,000 robots working in. So how does the human machine element work together to deliver? What do we kind of give the machines or the AI to do, and what are the things where we do have human in the loop?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because I think it sounds like we operate some kind of matrix or something. But I mean, essentially, we very much see this as a collaboration effort where, robotics, they're there to assist the human and ultimately, remove tasks that are suboptimal, either from a labor intensity perspective, a safety perspective, and that includes ergonomics as well. But of course, we continue to have human interaction. So, for example, we have a number of engineers, and we spoke about skills, but we have noticed a real increase in the type of jobs we're seeing in fulfillment centres. I don't know exactly what their title is, but engineers who will work on maintaining the robots, kind of overseeing the robotic systems in the facilities. It's not a fully automated system, and it's very much seen as complementary and able to assist people. One other technology I did want to mention that all of you will be aware of is Alexa. So Alexa is built on 30 different AI and ML systems, and you all will have hopefully felt the benefits of speaking to your phone or your Ring or whatever it is. And we've just announced Alexa Plus, which is utilizing generative AI. That will now be a much more personalized experience. So your Alexa device will be able to recognize conversations you've had previously, draw upon them, give you a more tailored experience. So again, that kind of interface with humans is obviously important, and hopefully will have a positive impact as well.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Look, I think Alexa Plus is an interesting one to explore because Alexa had been using generative AI, large language models, for many years, but this is now taking it to the next level with Alexa Plus. Giulia, I'll come to you now, right? I mean, given we're talking about AI in the future for transport, and you've been working very closely with the investors and the startup community around all the investments coming into this, right? What are some of the key trends you've been observing around where is the investor community willing to kind of put their money on in terms of innovation or AI-led innovation for transport? What are your perspectives on that?
You're right, exactly. So my work is almost at the interface between working with startups like yours, Robin, and government departments and other funders, Network Rail, National Highways, HS2, and others. And there is clearly a huge interest in AI-led and embedded solutions, both from those bodies, but also, as you said, from private companies, so private investors, VCs, etc. And just by talking to them and having recent conversation, I sort of jotted down a couple of areas which actually align quite well with your 6 areas that you had on the screen earlier. So I'm not going to delve too much into a couple that are probably very similar, but I've got 2 that maybe are beyond the one that you mentioned there. So just to reiterate, definitely future investment, as you said, around public transport and how to make it more dynamic, more data-led. We recently actually funded with the DfT a couple of projects looking exactly at the integration of AI with real-time data feeds. But also funding for the rural economy and how AI can actually help ensure that we tackle transport inequality, especially in other areas. And for those of you who were there yesterday and today, we had some interesting demonstrators downstairs. So you cover that there, and as well, Jen, you sort of mentioned about sustainability. So I was talking actually to one of our board members earlier who's involved in AI and net zero, and that's definitely an area where everyone from private and public investors are really interested, and especially in terms of fleet electrification, but also optimizing the way that we do things. So going towards like using AI for more sort of the predicting, modeling, the analysis of trends that go forward. So that's definitely come out as an interesting future funding opportunity. And then something that as well you mentioned, Jen, around the freight and logistic aspect. But one of the things I've sort of noticed from some of the recent work that we've done with our Freight Innovation Fund through various government departments is the recognition that there's a lot of interest in autonomous vehicles, not just for people, so cars, autonomous cars, but also the autonomous vehicles when it comes to rail, freight, and maritime. So how do we go beyond just the passenger aspect? And we're working closely with Glasgow Airport, for instance, to look at how we use optimized solution. And we've been working with a couple of SMEs and other organizations, universities as well, to see how AI can improve the logistics of not just inside the airport, but also when on the runway, basically. So those are the areas that you've had already there. And the skills, of course, being another one. But the two, I guess, for me, most interesting that I would like to sort of put to the audience are, first of all, future funding, I think, is likely to scale and go from pilots here, there, and everywhere to a shift to more sort of enhanced deployment of the various pilots. So there are already various corridors of innovation where AI is implemented or deployed, and I think we'll probably see more investment going towards those areas. We're seeing clearly a global level, Singapore, Dubai, many other places, London as well is starting to, but I think that's where the future fund is definitely going. And there seems to be an expectation that the focus will also be very much on the integration of those various elements, so vehicles to vehicles or vehicles to infrastructure, or for instance with national highways there's a lot of interest in the smart road or smart traffic, etc. So lots of integration on that front. And the final area, which again is, I think, fundamental to do everything that we've said today, previously, yesterday, etc., is funding that will go towards recognizing and creating proper standards and regulatory frameworks that will allow AI to actually develop and enhance our travel way of living. And I guess the question and probably the investment sort of angle would be, how can the UK become almost a global pioneer in setting those AI standards that could then be expanded elsewhere? To that, I would sort of add another level, which is the AI, I would call it hidden infrastructure, which my fellow panelists have sort of inferred to. There's a lot of almost requirements, lots of requirements in order to even set up a pilot or make a solution come to life. And that goes back to having sandboxes, having data models, having all the digital infrastructure required to make the AI solution safer, sustainable, usable, and customer-led. So the digital maps, the digital hubs, and that clearly then led to a fundamental need to invest in the cybersecurity aspect of protecting us and ensuring that the data is shared safely, securely, and in an ethical way, in a way. So potentially, developing those framework. And so I think in terms of sort of where we're heading is definitely, I think in AI transport, we're probably heading towards going from pilot to more deployment type solutions, but also moving away from just looking at the shiny technology and focusing on these hidden frameworks that are at the basis of our solutions to make.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think something you spoke about, the moving from pilots to deployments, which are like production-ready applications, right? And one of the things we've been observing is our stakeholders, customers, sometimes they get excited by a little POC that they see, but then when they are about to go live and productionize, and that's when the standards, the regulations, the infrastructure starts hitting them. And sometimes we've seen scenarios where it just dilutes the whole business case of doing that particular use case as well. So thinking about that up front is really, really helpful. But yes, sorry.
I was actually just going to build on that. Something I think to TfL's great credit in that program, alongside it was the process of how do we do technical assurance on this capability at scale? Because there's a need to be able to trust the tools and to have them be consistent and reliable and auditable and all these other things that are they're non-functional requirements almost. They're things that are alongside the core. Can I have a report, please? It's can I believe what's in that report? Is it trusted? Has it got a stamp on it? And that was something that was dovetailed into that collaboration from very early on, and it was really painful to start with. But it's been very valuable because it means we can now deploy the same type of solution almost anywhere and have a lot of those things built in place. A lot of that capability has matured alongside the core solution. So.
Robin, you mentioned some trust in the discussion right here. I mean, of course, trust in AI is a huge topic across the industry, right? Share some of your experiences around how do you ensure that your customers and people you're working with, your stakeholders, they trust in the applications you're building with them, with the digital twin and all?
Well, so it's interesting because in a lot of cases we moved away from using pure AI methods because we had to be able to demonstrate complete, absolute replicability and consistency and be able to show people exactly what was happening at all the stages in the process. And that is fundamental to people trusting it. But even with all of that, we're talking about big models that have got millions of entities in them, all moving around and interacting in complex ways. So some of the validation, some of the reporting around it is about comparing back to observed data. And we've had to automate and build tools and methods to surface that information quickly and consistently, and to help our sort of human in the loop analyst supervisors be able to say, well, these are the 15 things that we need to check and look at, and this is how we can show that we've done it. So it's almost using the strengths of the automation technologies and the AIs to help the human provide the quality assurance that's needed to build the trust. And all of that needs to be transparent and well documented and so on. So.
Right. No, that's a good one, actually. I mean, the whole human in the loop is because we've been hearing across industry, right, with the agentic AI coming into picture. Sometimes we paint a world where agents going to work among themselves and humans are, but I think that we are quite far from some that kind of reality.
Yeah.
Robin, I'll just probe a quick one on scalability part as well, right? Something Giulia mentioned as well, right? Because the investors are putting in money in startups to kind of create solutions for transport ecosystem, right? And this is something that we see a lot where you put in investment, you work for a particular partner or a customer within the whole supply chain, then scaling that whole solution becomes a bit of, what are some of the initiatives you are taking and your organization is taking to kind of make those scalable solutions?
Yeah, so it's a great question because working with TfL, fantastic. there's only one London in the country, there's only one in Europe, there's only one in the world. And so actually the market and the need for this is much more with local highway authorities across the UK who don't have the same internal resource, they don't have the same scale of capability. So being able to transfer that technology and apply it and tailor it really quickly to their needs so that their end users who may have a different skill set can still ask a relevant question and get a useful answer quickly and cost effectively, because something that's been very exciting for us over the last 18 months or so has been working through the HS2 innovation program with a wider supply chain, and then alongside that working with public authorities around the country and being able to support really small scale analyses and tool up and deploy the solution very quickly, so that rather than taking months or years to get a modelling capability, it's weeks, it's days to weeks. And that's something that can then be made useful straight away, because somebody has a headache that they need to solve, they've got a difficult question they need to answer, and these tools can scale and can be redeployed more efficiently. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Robin. Jenny, I bring you in, right? I mean, we've touched on the scalability part, the trust part, right? Skills is an important element in all of this. We're talking about human in the loop, right? I mean, it'll be great for you to kind of just highlight around new kind of roles we've seen within Amazon coming in and how we are upskilling our own staff in that space.
Yeah, very happy to. I actually was doing a bit of research before this, and I saw there was a 2024 cloud skills report that identified, of the companies they interviewed, 42% of them identified skills as their main blocker to being able to deploy AI or data and AI applications. And I did kind of allude to it earlier, but actually, we really believe that this pipeline and having a talented, skilled pipeline coming through is really important. And what we've actually seen is, as we've introduced the robotics into our warehouses, into our facilities, as we've started to implement these new technologies, we've actually seen the creation of around 700 new roles. I did mention some of them, but this includes in engineering, in mechatronics, in machine maintenance. I was actually on a tour of a fulfillment centre with Lillian Greenwood, the Minister for Future Roads, and we met one of our apprentices, and it actually turned out he was showcasing our robots, and it actually turned out he had previously been an electrician who had done some work at the site and had completed an Amazon apprenticeship in automated robotics to come and be a robot engineer or robot maintenance. And it's stories like that that I think are really important to highlight at this point in the journey. It's real, it's happening, it is upskilling people, they are new jobs, they're jobs that perhaps we hadn't imagined, but we are seeing that upsurge at the moment, and making sure we've got those kind of programs in place, like apprenticeships to support the development of new skills is critical.
Yeah, no, thanks. Sorry, Robin, you want to add something?
A small thing on that. So there's also something we've seen where there's people with existing skill sets who are specialists in a particular area, then being able and empowered to access tools and capability and resources they couldn't have accessed before, because the interface is supported by some new piece of AI tech or a tooling or an interface. So we can all do a voice memo, we can all send a text message, we can all write an email. I write bad emails, but making it so that you can do that and then query a really complex system to get a useful answer.
Yeah.
It's almost like a force multiplier.
Yeah.
Who can do more with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think in the interest of time, Giulia, I'll come to you on investments in skill building, right? So just finishing off on there, right? So there's a lot of new kind of elements popping in. How much investment is going into skill building in the industry? I mean, not how much, but how much focus is there from an investor community perspective around that? And what's your perspective on that?
I think probably not enough. admittedly is probably still a new area, so everyone is still trying to find the way around. And the fact that there are new jobs, or that AI is shaping the way of doing, the way of working in different ways, is probably catching up. But I think the interest is there, and everyone recognizes the need of investing more in learning, development, especially, as Jen said, with the apprenticeship scheme. That's a really important and fundamental sort of source of new ideas and new skills that could come into that. But from if you want a private investor point of view, I think the skill and the depth that the SMEs demonstrate in their own individual sort of pilot is very important when it then comes to scaling those ideas further, to give them the trust, again going back to trust, to give them the trust and the longevity of their investment. So definitely really important.
Yeah, and I think that is where this is one of our observation as well, right? So there's a lot of innovation, new solution coming in, and investment into new solutions, right? But very soon, I think as an industry, we'll see a big roadblock of people not understanding how to embrace these new solutions because of lack of skills. And these skills are not necessarily going to be technical skills, right? This is about, how do you work with an augmented AI application, right? And bringing some of those experiences in the mix.
And just to build on that, it's absolutely broader than just very specific skills. There is probably a culture change needed as a whole across different industries that would probably facilitate, again, the patchwork into a more sort of national strategy, into a clearer national strategy towards it.
I think there's also an acceptance that a lot of it's still changing quite quickly.
Absolutely.
And we very fortunate to work with a very techie, wonderful team. I mean, some of this is changing really fast. It's like it's stuff
Hard
that
to keep up.
Yeah, it is, and that. But the thing that's helpful in it is being able to focus on what the end result is, so that you can plug in the new capabilities as they emerge and be able to help improve the output for the customer as you go through it. So
yeah. No, thank you all for your useful inputs. I've got one question on Slido. I'll just open it up, and whoever wants to take it. It's an anonymous guest. Will we always need a human in the loop, or will we eventually trust AI enough that it's unnecessary?
that's a great question.
We're all desperate to answer it.
Sorry?
We're all desperate to answer.
Well, I can.
So you've each got 30 seconds.
You go.
I'll go. What we found is that even trying and training and using various different methods to pick out stuff automatically, it's so important to have the additional context and interpretation and nuance that an expert human can provide in that. And it's, I'm very impressed with a lot of what well-tuned AI tools can do, but there is still a gap, and I find it hard to believe that there won't always be a really high need for appropriate expertise being deployed. And checking. So.
Giulia, you want to give a quick?
2 seconds. Ditto. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to imagine that wouldn't be the case at the stage that we're at, and how how we're looking at utilizing the technology and how the technology is most useful. So I keep talking about it being complementary to, for example, the associates that we work with in our fulfillment centers. Like, it truly is there to make things faster, safer, improve their lives, make their roles more engaging. It is still required that we have people on the ground in our facilities.
Humans are really good at doing stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Like, they're really, really efficient at human intelligence, let alone artificial. It's like, it's really effective.
All right. No, that's great. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
We are in time.
Likewise.